the power of imagination. It's it's paramount to tap into it. Um, but the problem that I see over 35 years of discovering internal freedom is that when you can't get or start to feel internal freedom from things that have been within the soul that has not gone away for a decent period of time, and it still is reoccurring, and your life is not happy. There is stuff there that possibly, if you understand it takes motivation, you can start attempting to move that stuff. Until I got that optimism, when I realized that by talking about my fears and my inadequacies and my low self-worth and my insecurities and just all the things that made me feel less confident. Um, and fear was a big one because I was so angry. I was angry because I was fearful and I was scared. But I had to admit that, and I didn't really want to admit that I was fearful and scared, um, uh, because admitting it was not in my heart 100% true based on how I had to survive. But I took a risk, and I trusted that that's probably what I was, and that's what I held on to. And as I kept talking about these incidences that I was angry in and reacted to and frustrated in, I started seeing a pattern of there was an underlying content to it, and it was my emotions, and that's what I wasn't in touch with. I couldn't go there. I didn't know how to get in touch with it. I didn't know how to manage it or operate it other than the way I was taught when I was a child. If somebody does something to you, you do it back to them. You know, if somebody thinks they're good, try to put them down. Um, Jealousy, resentment, um, feeling not good enough, sarcasm, um, belittling people, criticizing, plugging into to other people's problems, not taking stock of who I am. So by continuously working on that external stuff that I was operating in all the time, I was always there. If I started looking at my internal dialogue and what was happening for me personally, real personally in my heart and soul, I was scared. I was scared, and I had to. Well, I don't know if I had to. I found something that was starting to give me some relief from that fear, and that was ownership and getting in touch with that stuff and exploring it and staying with it and looking at it and committing to it. So I committed back then to talking about my feelings. I committed to not blame people. So once I started getting relief from that, it was like the heavens opened. It was like Moses was leading them out of Egypt. It was freedom, and that openness that started to come my way. I started seeing other things. I started seeing possibilities. I started seeing potentiality. I started seeing hope. I started seeing opportunities. I started seeing how far I could stretch this freedom within my soul. And then I started getting in touch with my imagination with it. I started marrying it up with my dream state, as the old man used to say, Alice in Wonderland, perception of the world. And I was thinking, like, how far can I take it? And the possibilities were endless. Like, what's the end of the earth? What's the limits of our ability? Well, it's as big as the world. Um, so I knew I could find freedom in that stuff too. If I found freedom with escape and feeling good, or starting to feel freedom and better of my internal dialogue about not liking myself and dealing with that and bringing that to the forefront as a priority in my life. That was number one. That before anything, that's what I had to work on every day if it was there to work on. If I was unmotivated, if things weren't going my way, if the challenges were getting hard, if the self-talk of the critic was really attacking me, like, or criticizing me, or I needed to talk about that, and I needed to do something about that. If I didn't deal with that, forget about the other stuff. Forget about the other stuff. Forget about, the $15 million property portfolio. Forget about turning over 25 million, 20 million a year or whatever in turnover in companies, and traveling the world, and all the beautiful cars and the beautiful places I've experienced, and the beautiful things, and the beauty in a life. I don't think I could have gone up to that level. Um, so with imagination, I started, like, just for an example, when I first started skiing, I knew I was going to be a great skier. I started skiing when I was about 30, 31, 32. And I knew, like anything, I just had to keep doing it. Uh, but when I was at the ski fields, when I first started going to New Zealand and Japan and other parts of the world, I would I'd be there watching great skiers, and I'd be watching their techniques, and I'd be watching where their body is, and I'd be watching where their weight is on the skis, and I'd be watching their turns, and I'd be watching their style, and I'd be taken in exactly where I was going to be one day. I was going to ski like a great skier. And I imagined that because that person who was a great skier skiing in that mountain, that person started where I started. And everybody starts where we all start. Nobody just goes bang to the top straight away. It's an unusual occurrence when that happens. So I used to imagine this, and mate, it took years to master it, but I never ever let go. Then I would, watch things on the internet about skiing, and I would know that, of course, like what I learn about openness and about my emotional turmoil, it's the same principle applies. I've got to be open to listen to people who are good at it and who have the technique that I need so I can be as good as that skier that looks great and can ski great going down those mountains. So the more open I was, the more transparent I was to take on information to acquire that technique. And that is how I become a really good skier. So if I didn't have that imagination within my soul, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So I know it's hard for people to grasp this openness thing that I talk about. I get that. I get people, don't want to show people that they're, they people might think if they ask for help that they're silly, or if they ask for help that people are going to have an opinion of them and judge them. But I'll tell you something about asking for help. People are glad to help, man. People are so glad to help you out. People want to help people when people ask for it. Think about this. If somebody asked you for help, would you knock them back? Come on. You'd have to be friggin', you'd have to be a bloody hard. You'd have to be friggin'. Oh, anyway, yeah. I know some people can prey on it, and some people can um, use it if you're not aware of it and they just want to take advantage. But you'd be aware of that. So I get why people don't want to ask for help, and but to be able to manage in a successful position in a life, it's important that we understand that a vision of a future is hopefully of you asking for help and me asking for help. And when I say ask for help to learn new things, you're not weak when you ask for help. You're not a lower end of a scale in respect to the person you're asking for assistance. All you're doing is you just want to acquire what you're imagining and what you want. So that's where imagination and another thing, like I remember I used to years back in the 90s, I was flying economy, and I was getting on planes and I was walking past business class, and I just used to imagine I'll be sitting there all the time. I'm not flying down the back. And I used to imagine myself sitting there in business class and people walking past me going down the back. But I did picture it. I picture it sitting me there, getting offered an orange juice or a champagne or sparkling water. Mr. King, what would you like to be served today for lunch, sir? Um, it feels good. It's nice. So again, imagination. My cars. I used to go to car yards, and I used to dream build, and I used to sit in SV 5000 VNs, and like VP Club Sports, and I used to imagine this, that I was going to own one, and I was open enough to allow that imagination to manifest. So that imagination can manifest, but you got to put in the work also. I used to do it with beautiful homes. I'd go on Saturdays to inspections to houses worth, $2 or $3 million. And back in the early 90s, that was a lot of money. But I'd walk into these homes and I was living there. I was living there. I was living there before I bought these places. And it costs nothing to imagine it. You don't need money. You don't need anything outside of yourself that we all use as a reason not to get it. And when we don't see that, we're not going to focus on our imagination. We're not going to focus on that. So it's powerful, and like friggin' Einstein, made the comment. Imagination is more paramount, and it's more of a yardstick than academic success, because it's real, and academic success is real too. But imagination is a different form of learning. And to get in touch with imagination, it's the same as going to school. We all had to start in a kindergarten to learn A, B, C, D, and maths and history and science. And well, this is the same in the soul and in the spirit. You've got to, it takes time, but are you close to connecting with it consistently and being confident in it and being open with it and being transparent with it and having the confidence to work within it and express it and talk about it? And there's going to be struggle in there. There's going to be hard times in there. There's going to be challenges in there. There's going to be trials and tribulations. But don't lose sight of your imagination and your soul. Don't lose sight of it, and hang on to it, and keep creating, even in tough times. And imagine being free of all that. There's another form of imagination. You can imagine that, and you can live a life where you're very competent and happy in your soul. And the more you get rid of the shit in your soul, and that's by talking about it. That's by talking about it. The quicker you get to creating your imagination. Have a great Saturday. Oh yeah. If you don't mind, if you enjoyed it, hit the bell, or yeah, I appreciate if you could subscribe. But also too, feedback's great, and like, give me some feedback on it. If you don't believe it, or if you think that that's not right in what I'm saying, like, I'm open. I love it. I love feedback. Without feedback, I might be doing something I can't see. So yeah, take care, and God bless. And I've got a book out. All the W's, kinghitbook.com. I'm also on Anchor. Got a podcast there. It's about the old days, about my heydays in the nick, in the jails, and friggin' running amok. Yeah, take care. And as John Lennon sung, imagine, people, imagine.